Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling something that really forms the invisible architecture of every single organization.
The human variable.
Exactly. For decades, businesses have measured success with hard skills, can you code, can you crunch the number?
Can you manage a merger, that kind of thing.
Right. But our sources today, which are a whole stack of research on organizational behavior, they show that the real long-term driver of success, and I'd say happiness at work, is personality.
It really is. It's the difference between, say, just having the skills and actually using them well within a team.
Yeah.
We're moving past this idea that people are just a good hire or a bad hire.
We need a better language for it.
We do. And that language is personality. So
Yeah.
what is it? It's the stable pattern of traits and characteristics that influence how you behave. It's like your own internal operating system.
And it's so important that we draw a line here right at the start. We're talking about stable traits, these ways of thinking and behaving,
Yes.
which are seen as distinct from mental abilities, like IQ. Personality is your will to do something, while ability is your can do something.
Precisely. And the most important takeaway, I think, is that these all exist on a spectrum. Nobody just is or isn't something.
It's not a switch.
It's not a switch, no. We all fall somewhere along the line, which is why human behavior has so much nuance.
Okay, so why do a deep dive on this? I mean, why are companies pouring millions into figuring this out?
Well, the business case is pretty solid. It really rests on three main pillars.
The first one being selection, hiring.
Right. Predictive hiring. You wouldn't hire an extreme introvert, no matter how smart, for a high-volume sales role that requires constant cold calling. It's about fit.
Makes sense. And the second?
Team dynamics. If you can map out the personalities on your team, you can start to predict where the friction will be.
And you can build teams that complement each other.
Exactly. And the third is leadership. A leader's personality basically sets the tone for the entire organization.
So to make all this complexity useful, we turn to the framework, the gold standard.
The one that's really stood up to scientific scrutiny. The Big Five model.
We'll use the acronym O.C.E.A.N. to guide us.
Let's start the dive with O, for openness to experience.
This one's fascinating. It's about intellectual curiosity, creativity, how open you are to new ideas.
Right. The sources talk about facets like creative imagination, the complexity of someone's mental life, high scores, or, the people who are always challenging the status quo.
The strategists.
The strategists, the innovators, they're invaluable in R&D, in marketing, anywhere you need fresh ideas and quick adaptation. Think tech startups.
Okay, so that's the high score. What about the other end of the spectrum, the low scorer?
Low scorers are your practical traditional folks. They prefer the tried and true.
They like routine.
They value routine. And while they might not be comfortable with huge, sudden changes, they are absolutely essential for roles that need consistency.
Like a compliance officer?
A meticulous compliance officer, an auditor, anyone who needs to make sure a process runs exactly the same way every single time. They create the stability that lets the high openness person's idea actually work.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's move on to C for conscientiousness. This feels like the bedrock of a functional workplace.
It truly is. It's your tendency to control impulses, to act responsibly, to be productive. Think organization, dependability, punctuality.
And the sources mention a related trait here, grit.
Yes, that steady persistence toward a goal no matter what.
And this is where the data gets, really clear. Conscientiousness is the single best predictor of job performance.
Across most roles, it's huge.
If you're high in this, you're the engine. The project manager who hits every milestone, the finance person who's meticulous, you deliver.
That dependability is a massive asset. But can you be too conscientious?
Absolutely. The downside can be rigidity, perfectionism that slows everything down, an inability to delegate, micromanagement.
Right. And sometimes that's where the low scorer actually provides some value.
The brilliant but scatterbrained inventor.
Exactly. The lab's a mess, they miss deadlines, but they have a breakthrough because they aren't trapped by a linear process. They can be more spontaneous.
It's about knowing when you need structure versus when you need that spark. Okay, next up is the social dimension. E for extraversion.
Extraversion is all about where you get your energy, from the outside world or from within.
So high extroverts are energized by social interaction.
They are. They're gregarious, assertive, they thrive in groups. And we have to be clear, the opposite, introversion, isn't shyness.
Right. It's just being energized by solitude and reflection.
And that distinction is critical. Your high extroverts are perfect for sales, negotiation, PR. The person who can work a room and build relationships effortlessly.
But then you have the introvert, the low extrovert.
And they're your deep thinkers. They're built for complex problem solving, coding, deep research, any role that requires sustained, quiet focus.
The data scientist finding a pattern that everyone else missed because they were too busy networking.
Precisely. You need one to connect, the other to synthesize.
Which brings us to A for agreeableness, the team glue.
I like that. It's about how you orient yourself toward others. Positivity, warmth, helpfulness. High scorers are cooperative, trusting, and easy to get along with.
They're crucial for building a good culture. HR, customer service.
Conflict resolution, absolutely. They're the mediators.
But the sources also talk about the challenger, the person low in agreeableness.
And you need them. Low scorers are more skeptical, more competitive. They're less concerned with keeping everyone happy.
Which can sound abrasive.
It can be. But they're essential when you need someone to challenge assumptions or drive a hard bargain. Think of a chief procurement officer who has to be ruthless to save the company millions. You don't hire a people pleaser for that job.
That's a really sharp distinction. Okay, finally we get to the one that affects resilience the most. N for neuroticism.
Or, as it's often framed, its opposite, emotional stability.
Neuroticism is the tendency to experience negative emotions, right? Anxiety, stress, moodiness.
Yes, what's sometimes called negative emotionality.
And, no surprise, high neuroticism is generally a negative for job performance, especially in high-stress roles.
It is. This is the trader who panics and makes impulsive bad decisions when the market dips. The stress can lead to burnout and mistakes.
But is there any upside?
There can be. Sometimes that anxiety drives a person to over-prepare. They worry so much about failing that they build incredible safety nets, they double-check everything.
And on the other side, the low scorers, the emotionally stable people.
They are invaluable. Calm, secure, resilient. They are the ideal for leadership, for crisis management, for any role where you need a cool head when things are falling apart.
The CEO, who stays completely calm during a product recall and guides everyone through it.
That's the poster child for low neuroticism.
Oh, yeah.
So O.C.E.A.N. gives us this amazing broad map. But personality research, it doesn't just stop there.
The model can be sliced in different ways.
Exactly. You can get into narrower aspects called facets, or even add whole new dimensions.
Which leads us to an expansion of the model, the Hexaco framework. And that adds a sixth factor, H.
Honesty, humility. And this is so important because it captures a kind of integrity that isn't fully covered by the other five.
It's about whether you put yourself ahead of others.
Right. Do you seek special treatment? Are you manipulative? A high score means you're sincere, fair, and not greedy. It's a proxy for trustworthiness.
A low score, however, that starts to lead us down a darker path.
It does. It leads us toward what researchers call the dark triad.
It sounds very dramatic.
It is, but in a business context, it's a very real cluster of traits that can just destroy team trust and psychological safety.
And again, we have to stress, these are on a spectrum. We're not talking about clinical disorders necessarily.
No, we're talking about people who just rate higher than average on these specific self-interested scales.
Let's break them down. First up, narcissism.
In this context, it's an inflated sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, sense of entitlement. They can be charming at first.
Great in a job interview.
Often fantastic. But their focus is always on their own ego, not the team's success.
Okay, second is psychopathy.
This one is about a serious lack of empathy. No remorse, poor impulse control. In an office setting, a high scorer might use people like pawns to get what they want.
And they don't take responsibility when they hurt others.
Never. They'll blame the victim, the circumstances, anything but themselves.
And the third is Machiavellianism.
Named for the author of The Prince, of course. This is about being calculating. Treating people as a means to an end, using manipulation and deceit to achieve your goals.
The ultimate office politician.
The ultimate. They're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
So understanding this whole spectrum from the super conscientious to the highly Machiavellian, it brings us to a really important point.
The myth of the perfect personality.
Because there isn't one.
There absolutely is not. The entire lesson here is that success comes from alignment. The alignment between a person's personality profile and the demands of their job.
So a marketing team might need high openness and high extraversion.
While your accounting team needs off-the-charts conscientiousness and high emotional stability, the best personality is completely fluid. It depends on the context.
And that's where this becomes a powerful tool for managers, because you can't change someone's core personality.
You can't, and you shouldn't try. These traits are pretty stable. The goal is to manage the differences you have.
The sources gave 3 really concrete takeaways here. First, strategic selection.
Using this framework in how you hire, don't just ask about what they did, probe for how they do things.
Can you give an example?
Sure, for a role that needs high conscientiousness, you could ask a candidate how they organize their digital files. It's a subtle way to see if they're naturally structured.
I like that. Okay, second takeaway, targeted assignment.
Right. Put people in positions to succeed based on their profile. Put your highly agreeable person on your toughest, most sensitive client accounts.
And your highly conscientious person in charge of documentation and process.
You could even put your low agreeable challenger in the role of devil's advocate in strategy meetings.
Yeah.
Give their skepticism a productive outlet.
That's smart. And the third point is tailored management and feedback. This is where it all comes together.
It is. You manage the traits, not just the task. For a highly neurotic employee, you might start feedback by reinforcing their security and competence first, because anxiety is their baseline.
You buffer the feedback.
You do. But for a low agreeableness employee, you do the opposite. They don't need emotional reassurance. They need hard data.
A rational argument.
A rational argument that appeals to their desire for results. You frame it as a challenge to optimize performance, not a critique of their style. That's how you get the best from them, without constant friction.
So the Big Five and these other models, they give you a language, a code for understanding why people do what they do.
It stops you from just reacting to behavior and helps you understand the operating system that's driving it. And that makes you a much more effective leader.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to take away from this.
We've established that personality is separate from intelligence. So think about the brilliant person who is also highly neurotic. We know their anxiety is a burden for them and maybe for the team, but that same anxiety is what drives them to obsessively over-prepare, to check every detail, to anticipate every possible thing that could go wrong. Now that you have this language, how do you design a role or a team environment that harvests the asset of that obsessive preparation while also actively shielding that person from the downside of the anxiety? The answer to that is the key to unlocking a certain kind of genius.